We have all learned how to work in new ways over the last 10 months, and it only takes 28 days to form a new habit, so it's likely we have lots of new habits. By now, each individual has had time to consider what they miss about the old way of working, and what they have embraced about these socially distant times. The reactions are as varied as the types of people who share the workplace. Now that we've had a very literal window into the personal style of our colleagues, we may have a deeper understanding of the human factors in productivity and connection. How can we translate that information into new ideas for how the collaborative workplace is designed? Welcome back to the Tide Generator podcast. Hello, I'm your host, Kirsten Nelson. Today, we're here to talk about the workplace and human factors in the workplace and how we can design a little better as we start to think about what we like about the office and what we don't miss, things that we would love to change now that we have the opportunity to really rethink how we like to collaborate together in a space. So yeah, here to contemplate these questions with me is an esteemed panel of guests. So let's start with the introductions. We have Rachel Harris, production manager. Hello, Rachel. Hi.
Hi, Kirsten. Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome. Thanks. And we have Mary Frank, creative director with ESI Design and NBBJ Studio. Hello.
Hi, Kirsten. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. And we have Mark Coxon, Sales Director of Technology with Tangram Interiors. Hello, Mark. Hi.
Hey, Kirsten. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, good to see you guys all. I'm glad we're in this collaborative virtual environment where we spend so much time. Glad to be here with you. And yeah, this is a great panel because you all come from different approaches to what workplace feels like and acts like, where technology can fit into that and where it aids us, where it might get in our way. So yeah, let's start contemplating. I always like to start pretty big picture in terms of the workplace. Okay, so a lot of us have been working remotely for a long time. A lot of us know what we like about working remotely, but we also know what we miss, or if we miss anything about the office. So I guess I like to open it up with what is it about the workplace that what do we do there? What's the common denominator about a workplace, and what is something we should try to bring forward as we try to think about going back to it?
You know, I really think this has been an opportunity to do something that we haven't done in a long time, which is say, why do we actually go to work? And why do we actually go into the office space in the first place? Because I think a lot of businesses had this kind of work is done here culture that just perpetuated over the years. And I think our design, honestly, from a technology standpoint, from a workplace standpoint for a long time, got a little lazy. We just started replicating designs that we had before, and then new technology or new tools would come out and we would say, okay, now how do we design this 50-year-old conference room to now adapt to having a camera in it? When maybe the 50-year-old conference room wasn't the place to start in the first place. Right. And so we kept doing reiterating this design that's been around a long time, which was a design which was made for people to sit at a table and review documents that were printed for them because they couldn't get together virtually, or they didn't have digital tools or have a phone in their pocket with a 3-inch screen and all of these things. And so I've found this very refreshing in a way, because I think when we're starting to now talk about work, we're really starting to get back to what are the outcomes that we're trying to facilitate by having people physically together or together virtually, either way, but we're actually starting to talk about outcomes again. What is the purpose of us actually being on this call at this time synchronously together, as opposed to sharing a video, making notes, joining a Slack channel? Is there an actual reason for us to be together in time, either in a virtual place or physical space? And I think this time has really helped us kick that off. And, I kind of go back to this article I read in Wall Street Journal a long time ago that really there are only 3 main reasons to meet. And the 3 main reasons to meet are to make a decision, to create a forum, to search for other opinions, or to reinforce a team. And if we're not designing workplaces that do those three things, whether virtually or in person, then really there's no reason for us to be together in the same place in the same time, whether virtual or physical. So I'll leave it there, and then I'll let people attack me and break down what I said. But
yes, controversy of synchronous work versus asynchronous work. It is a good way to look at it for sure. Yeah, that's how we're thinking about it now.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that the workplace does have its charms as a place, right? There's something that people like to do, which is just be around each other. I mean, there are so many things about work in general, where we gather in these buildings or on these calls and to get together and do this work. And sometimes you look at it later and see that no work has really gotten done. Like, where is the work in what we've just accomplished? And so as someone who is not, everybody on this call already knows I'm not like rushing to get back to the office. But I do think that there is that intangible value in running into people or on your way to the restroom, or some of the other things that have come into the technology workplaces, like the pool table and the video games and the ping pong table, and having those opportunities to just kind of get to know each other, which hopefully does add to productivity in the long run. I don't know, I haven't seen the numbers on how that actually works, but I think that there is some value in being able to go back to work, although I personally am not in a hurry to do that. And and we'll be very happy to keep figuring out how to play trivia on Zoom to connect with people and things like that.
Reinforcing a team. And I think, so many of your points address that as well, Rachel, that we do need to have a shared identity. And I think that, while it's intangible, I think that it creates trust, it fosters connection, it makes it easier for people to collaborate, easier for them to resolve any misunderstandings, and it's fun, right? It like motivates people, it makes them feel more interested in staying for a long time. I think there's probably, you could probably tie it to like factors around like, retention, and talent acquisition and things like that. So I think that that's an area where I think our work focuses on more, helping to create that sense of shared identity, to support culture. And like personally, I think that is the part that I miss the most. I think we've found ways to create forums. I think we've found ways to make decisions, but I think that it's that last point that I personally miss the most, like being able to have happy hour with my coworkers, to do things that really make us feel like we're part of a team and part of a specific group of people.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on the end of that, because I think there's although we can accomplish certain things, like, okay, we can have a happy hour online and we can accomplish having a conversation and drinking an adult beverage. Okay, if those were the 2 points of happy hour, then there are a lot of ways to facilitate that. But if that's the case, then if you think about it, like we never sat at our desks and had happy hour at the office. That would have been much more convenient than actually having to like find a place and go somewhere with each other and do all those things. But some of the reason that we do that is because there's a mental gear that needs to shift. And so if all of my day is sitting in front of the screen doing meetings with 4 squares, does my brain sufficiently shift into a social mode when now, just because it's called happy hour, when I'm really sitting in the same physical location and I'm looking at the same screen, and now maybe it's 6 o'clock, but like to my body, has there been a transition? Like, has there been a physical like demarcation of work to this other time? And I think what you said is important too, like this whole piece of teamwork, like, like bring your dog to work or having a ping pong table, those things don't make culture. What those things signify is we're the type of company that cares about you as an individual and the things you care about. If you have a dog and you're worried about them having anxiety at home, we're the kind of company that cares about you and what you care about. And so we want to make that easier on you to be able to be more productive at work. It's not the fact that you get to bring a dog to work, right? Like, I don't have a dog, but if I went to a company that had bring your dog to work day, I think that's kind of cool. It's no convenience to me personally, but I like the idea that they're thinking about people's lives beyond this piece. And that's my main fear with this, is that we become that some of that interpersonal dies away with the virtual. And I don't say that has to, but I think that companies need to be conscious of, okay, if we are reducing our presence together physically, how are we, I guess, rebuilding some of those same things virtually?
Yeah, I think exhibiting that kind of care for the different people who are in an office, like exhibiting that care really is important. And I think that is the big piece of when we look at going back to the workplace. This is an opportunity to finally recognize that there are different types of people who do work differently. It used to be like, like you guys were saying, that there was just this work gets done here from 9 to 5 mentality, and that's how you show that you were working. And it's time to start looking. We started a few years ago. There was that line of furniture that Susan Cain did with Steelcase. I think it was for introverts. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I loved the idea that there was a special line of furniture that made introverts feel that there was like a sort of softer acoustic around them and things like that. And this might be the moment where we figure out, okay, this person loves to be here every single day, loves to keep the same hours. This person likes to show up sometimes for collaborative moments. This person always brings their dog. So yeah, I guess as we're trying to rebuild, and I keep saying rebuild because we know that offices are being reconfigured right now too. I guess maybe my question is, what are you hearing from clients, or what were you hearing in the workplace about what do they want when they try to rebuild? Are they trying to make more collaborative spaces because they understand people might be coming in to do more shared work moments? I don't know, I think Mary, you're working on some projects right now, right?
That's right. We're working on some projects, and these are projects that started before the pandemic. So, I think there was a lot of thought that was going into those that I think actually transfers pretty well to our current circumstances. We're often engaged by clients at moments when they are creating a new headquarters or creating a new significant workspace, and we often create these large-scale architectural media experiences to be a focal point within, large shared spaces like the lobbies, and so I think that connects to this idea of creating tools for culture, and to help a client, like in this pivotal moment, redefine or reinforce the culture that they want. And so, we often use the tools of digital media, but bring this architectural sensibility to that. But I think that this is something that everyone is interested in right now, because if we're going to have a new hybrid work culture, what is that culture going to be? We've all managed to pivot to working remotely, but it was in this kind of haphazard way. Can we be more intentional about that? Or if we have more options, what's a good mix, and how can that support the cultures that people want? And I think even within the last couple of years, people also are realizing that they need to be intentional about their culture, not just for like productivity reasons or team cohesion, but also just to be more ethical and conscientious, and to not propagate discrimination, honestly. And so I think that it's the way that we bring technology, like all of everyone on this call, the way that we bring technology into companies is often in this kind of functional way, that we want to serve certain communication needs. We want to serve certain needs for streaming, for example, or for conference rooms. But I think that without addressing the cultural side of this, and the way that people are going to use these technologies, those projects don't end up with legs. They don't get very far. Which brings me, I think, to the topic of client engagement. I would love to hear from the other panelists how you think we can engage our clients to have these conversations and use these tools most effectively.
Yeah, I know from our company standpoint, Mary, and I love a lot of what you said. I know from our company standpoint, I'm a technology group within a larger interiors company. And so we're working with a lot of architects and designers on workplace design in general, furniture layouts and floor space and things like that. And then, one of the things that we were able to do was do a lot of roundtables with companies. And so decision makers or facilities managers from 5-6 companies on the phone at the same time, talking about what they're going through, what they miss, the challenges that they're having, and kind of grouped by vertical markets. And it was really interesting to hear, the trends that came out of some of those things, like what people were really missing and what they needed to design for. I'll say I went to a company the other day where they're consolidating 3 locations. They have 400 employees and they were across 3 locations, and they're consolidating those 3 locations back into the main office. And they were growing so fast. I mean, they went from 100 to 400 people within like a year and a half. So they were growing so fast that they were just adding desks, adding spaces. Like people just needed a place to sit. Like everything became a storage room. Like they do consumer goods, right? So there's things all over the place. They're curating packages. They're doing all sorts of things. And everybody went home. And now they're looking at this and they're really looking at it from a perspective of, okay, the office, number one, needs to be a retreat. We know you can do work at home. Why would you want to come here? So if you need a break, if you need a re-energizing session, that this should be a retreat style space. This should be a space that you could come to get some clarity, or that you can come to get some reconnection to the organization, so that the nether 4 days that you're home, so like the C.S. Lewis coal in the fire, right? Like when you remove a coal from the fire, it goes black. When you put it back in, it quickly glows red, right? That whole analogy of like, how do we make a workplace that allows somebody to either re-energize or create a retreat? A lot of the workplace studies we've seen is, a lot of the people that are having the most trouble with remote work at times are actually millennials. Like people think that it would be people with families. A lot of them are people who share space. Hey, we have a 1-bedroom loft apartment and we've got 3 people that live here. It's not, you don't exactly have private space to do meetings all day, right? So there are some people that want spaces to be able to do certain tasks, even if they don't want to be in the office every single day. So they're looking at that. They're also looking at ways to reconnect. And then the other thing that they're trying to do, and something that I've heard a lot of people talk about, is, we need to create spaces that recreate that chaos. And Rachel mentioned this earlier, the bumping into somebody on the way to the bathroom or bumping into somebody on the way to the cafe. Everything we do now is scheduled. Every time we get together because it was a time to log on to the phone. And our mental capacity to be ready to do whatever that task is at that given time may not be there, right? But there's a way to create a workspace that has that engineered chaos, that creates these chance collisions, the creative collisions that people talk about. And I think that's one of the really hard things to do virtually, is to find this kind of, how do we engineer chaos? How do we engineer those chance meetings? And, one of the companies I was talking to, aha moments are rarely scheduled, right? But all our meetings now, all our time is on this schedule. So how do we create a workplace that makes people want to come in, has that gravity, but also pushes people into each other and recreates those collisions?
Yeah, I just find that really interesting, because what you brought up there, Mark, was one thing I've been thinking about a lot, just as an individual. I guess this is me just realizing what the struggle is I've been dealing with, which is that sense of being constantly scheduled. And you don't necessarily get the most I have to offer when it's expected inside a block of time or whatever it is. And I think that one of the values in me, or one of the values that you can get from me, is if I have the space to create, then you're going to like what you get, but you're not necessarily going to know when you're going to get it. So that chaos factor is definitely very important to me in general, and something that is not very accessible at this time, because we are also so heavily scheduled. That downtime, that creative downtime, is kind of hard to find. Even if you can schedule yourself 3 hours, who knows if they're the right ones. The other thing that was coming to mind for me, and I can't help but think about the workplace from an events perspective, because that's all I do there. And one thing that my clients and myself and everyone who's planning an event is dealing with is events are about sharing information, but there's also that aspect of sharing energy. And that's what happens in those chaos moments. That person you bump into on the way to the cafe, you have an energetic moment. And in an event, it's one person or whatever panel sharing that energy with all these people who end up being so happy to be there to get it. And it is definitely difficult to do that aspect of communication virtually.
Yeah, as a biology geek myself, I think there's definitely a chemical thing that happens when people are in a room, right? And I think all of us have had the experience of being in a movie, like in a movie theater during a funny movie, and the crowd erupting in laughter, and it's hilarious. And you see it at home on video later, and it's not quite as funny as what it was, and or or a deep emotional moment. And I don't think it's just the size and scale of screen and surround sound. I think there really is something to that community of people experiencing something new at the same time and being in the middle of that reaction, of that almost kind of mass hysteria that can happen with people, right? And I think there's some advantage you can pull from that as an employer or as somebody who's designing workspace to say, okay, if we were going to get people in a mood, if people in this room have to be creative, what environment is going to create the most energy, happiness, movement in this space, given the type of employees that we have, that would yield that result? And when you talk about events, I laugh because like we go to these event centers, we go to corporate event centers, and we go in this conference room with like mauve, fabric on the walls, and we sit in banquet chairs and we look at a portable projection screen. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, this room was not made to teach people. This room was designed to reheat food with sterno cans. That's what this room was designed to do. And somehow we think we're going to get like this awesome result out of a meeting in this space that was never designed to energize people, to adapt to people that have different learning styles, to be lit and tasked properly for people to either sit and take notes on their lap or to have a table, or, these kind of neurodiversity things that we have to think about. And I'm hopeful that this time really makes us start thinking about why we're designing the spaces that we are.
Yeah, hopefully we can bring more of a production design element to the way we're thinking about these spaces. Because we do want to feel something. If it's about being a collective whole, it would be nice to think about it like, how do you want people to feel in this space? And like, as we were saying before, like some tech companies definitely want you to feel like there's ping pong here, stay longer, there's free food. But there's other things we want to feel collectively. And I think if we could think about, okay, this banquet hall has cavernous ceilings with really tacky chandeliers. How can we maximize that to make us feel something? But just let's think about the production element, and that's kind of where all of you have different ways of thinking about making the production of the office. So I guess, is there something else we can add that you would dream of adding? Should we be thinking about lighting more? Should we be thinking about acoustic elements? How can we reconfigure now?
For me, I think that a lot of the kind of corporate spaces have spent time designing around their branding. And so you walk in and you feel a member of the team, and you're reminded of, which Rachel is here. This is the Rachel who works at this company. But I think you would both know a lot more about what other kind of design elements can draw other aspects of people's productivity out of them.
Well, I'm interested to hear more from you, Rachel, around this sense of creating production, creating like special focus around events. And I think that it's so interesting that a lot more companies have brought production resources in-house, have brought in like more talent around creating an environmental design. And people are understanding that there's more of a value to that. And I'd be really interested in hearing how you see your role at this company facilitating these events.
Sure. Well, I mean, my role at my main job is mainly based on making sure that the live streams work, and I work on a team that does that. So it's very technical, and it's a lot about making sure that the technical signal paths are getting where they need to be properly. And of course, right now in 2020, that has exploded into a lot to be concerned about, without a doubt. With that said, in some of my other roles, it's a little bit more production management oriented, where I'm just helping people to get shows done. And what I think will happen in the future is that there will be more people like myself who have experience on both of these sides, who are going to have opportunities to talk about exactly what you're talking about, because we're going to be rebuilding these spaces in the next 2 years, 5 years. People are going to be looking at their auditoriums and how do they interact with their networks, and how are we going to make these events that we're doing constantly over and over and over again engaging for both humans who are in the room, for whatever limited number of humans we're able to have in the room, to give them an excellent experience, and then the unlimited number of humans we're able to have remote and let everyone still step into the event with the same mindset and pull out the same, well, not it, I don't think it has to be the same, but have an exceptional experience in it from wherever they sit. So I know that that's going to be something that people will be thinking about, that probably hasn't had to be a concern for many, but it will be a concern for a lot more going forward.
We've been speculating, kind of wildly, having fun with it, with what the workplace after COVID might look like. And I think that people are probably going to reprioritize the way they're using space. And I think, we were speculating about training in classroom spaces, around collaboration spaces, really dedicating more space to brainstorming, that kind of face-to-face energizing idea generation that you get. Because I think that's another thing that's unique and is hard to replicate online. But I think one of the other big things that we're thinking is that that being able to do like remote streamed presentation and production would actually be something that would make a lot of sense within the workplace, because we anticipate people doing more hybrid work, because people will probably continue to do more remote presentations. Maybe people won't fly around as much to do their business presentations after this. And so there might be more of a footprint within a normal office for, production equipment and a production approach to communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and,
I think, go ahead. Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, one more thing. I mean, that's making me think of, like one case might be, take a School of the Arts, right? Where what they're teaching is dance, and it's going to, I think it will happen where there will be small class sizes, but now you have a small school that has access to an unlimited number of students throughout the globe. So why can't you bring those students from Holland and South Africa into New York City dance classes, but you usually have a show at the end of a semester, right? So these are just kind of fun problems for me to think about. Like, so how do we engage that South African student who has learned all the steps and their parents want to see them in the show? How can we let them be in the same show that the New York students are in? And I think we can, just don't know how.
Well, that the interview between President Obama and Oprah Winfrey, the green screen work that they did on that was incredible. I think we're seeing, people come up with great compositing techniques to create a sense of shared space when there isn't one.
Yeah, I think to tag on to both of you are saying, I think that this whole idea that all the world's a stage is more true than ever, right? And that all of our spaces now need to be ready for video, for film, for recording and broadcast. And when I went to NAB a few years ago, when I was working for a manufacturer, I was there and I was with a small manufacturer, made small cameras among all these people who make big video cameras for football games and things like that. And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Everybody's in broadcast now. This was 4 or 5 years ago. Like, universities are in broadcast, businesses are in broadcast. Like, everybody's in the broadcast business in some way or another. If they're doing webinars, if they're doing remote learning, if they're doing streaming church services, like there's some level of broadcast that's going on almost every vertical. And I think that is only going to grow. So I think, if we think about things that we have to have in the spaces, I think acoustics become, more important than ever. I think lighting becomes more important. I think, good microphones. It's funny, if you watched like Jimmy Kimmel and some of these guys, Jimmy Fallon, go home during their Tonight Show stints during quarantine. Their audio and video quality was less than most of the good YouTubers out there in the beginning, because they had no clue. They were sent a camera and a microphone from their studio and said, set it up in your house somewhere. And they set it up in a hall and they've got all sorts of echo and there's no light on their face. And so we see even the production world, like a traditional broadcast world, like when you put that in the hands of the people on the ground, sometimes you don't get that I guess the same result that you would get. So I think there's a lot of learning curve and a lot of help that we could give businesses in doing that. I'd also say to Rachel and Mary's point, compositing, extended reality, I think all of these things are going to become more and more important in virtual events. I think, shipping somebody something as a hands-on piece, if you're talking about a product, shipping people things that they can touch and feel while they're having a virtual meeting is going to be a big plus to kind of tap into that kinetic part of the way that we learn. And I'll also say, I think there's a huge opportunity now for, if you have an auditorium with 100 seats and 50 people can be in there, why wouldn't you put a 360 camera in one of the seats, and then whoever logs in from that seat can turn their head left and right, look at the people next to them, and have the experience of sitting in the audience, as opposed to getting an audience view shot like they're up above this. They're not sitting above the screen in the front, above the instructor's head, looking at the audience. So why would we give them that view of their counterparts in the training? Why wouldn't we give them the view of sitting in a chair, seeing the person presenting from a chair with somebody in front of them, and letting them actually control that view as they look left, right, up, down within the space, and explore just like they would if they were there. And I think those are a lot of the opportunities that we have to really create more of a natural and intuitive interface and experience that mimics the on-site experience while still giving people full virtual access. So I think I'm excited. I think there's a lot of opportunity to raise the bar out there.
Yeah, that makes me think too about, I was just talking with someone about audience miking, making sure that we actually mic the audience in a really good way, so that people who are participating remotely feel like they're part of the audience, and that works for any performing arts venue. And they were talking specifically about a house of worship where they wanted to be able to hear the other congregants singing. So yeah, that if you're going to do that 360 camera, also have like a binaural microphone, and because I think immersive is the thing that we're all talking about now too. Is okay, immersive audio. Let's give everybody the sensation that they're somewhere and they're somewhere together. Let's try to replicate that. And yeah, I guess maybe that's, as I start to wrap up this particular episode, that's the perfect transition, because now we've kind of covered a few things. Like, okay, so now everybody needs a virtual production set up in their office, and they need all these new features. I guess, what is your wish list? Like, what ideally should we be trying to add to the work? Like, what would you want to add to the workplace? What would compel you to maybe go back to that workplace?
There are lots of reasons for me to go back to the workplace, right? One of them is gear. I mean, there is work you can't do without the workplace, and there is work that you can't do without other people physically, and that's important. So the office, the workplace, the location will always be important. And if they keep the snacks coming, then I'll definitely be back. No, I will, for the snacks.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I miss the workplace a lot. I'm kind of one of those. I'm in a weird spot where I was an introvert as a kid, and think I became more extroverted as an adult. So I still need time to recharge after social engagements. I kind of like isolation therapy sometimes, just sitting in a dark room and not seeing or hearing anything. But I think, if I was going to go back to workplace, I mean, for me, we really need better places to create. Better places to connect. And for me, a lot of it's just that re-energizing, right? That okay, I need to be on fire for this again. And I find it hard sometimes to do that virtually. And I really feel like that creating a workplace that, your first thought is, when you're stuck, I need to get to the office and sit with those 4 people. Right? Like that should be the goal, is like, okay, if you were stuck, or if you need to get over a hurdle, or if you need to accomplish something, the workplace needs to be the place that facilitates getting unstuck from what your tools are at home. And so for me, those are really the things that would have to be. It would have to be connection, it would have to be creativity, and it has to be kind of that energy. And anything that can do that is great. And I really think we're going to see a lot more kind of thematic thinking. I mean, like companies like what Mary does, that do these real, how am I connecting the history of this space to the workforce? Like I saw a really cool installation, I think ESI did, that mimicked the architecture of the outside of the building. And it has LED lights kind of in these same columns that mimic the outside of the building. And as people walk by, it just creates color traces of the people that walk by. It's interactive. Is it really something that, oh my gosh, that increased our productivity by 54%? No, but it's something that connects the people to the space, to the history, to that specific location that can't be done anywhere else. And it's one small part of a larger plan to really bring people in and make them feel like, something special is there for them. And so I think we'll see more and more of that as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree with all those points. I think for me, it's that sense of identity and camaraderie that I miss the most. I think that parties are what's going to bring me back to the office. And yeah, to create that sense of identity and connection and awareness. I think I miss having that peripheral awareness of what the other teams within the studio are working on, just, seeing over their shoulder as I walk by, or, seeing their pinup boards on the wall. So I think that tools, for creating that peripheral awareness, for creating more camaraderie and connection, I think that's what I want to prioritize when we go back.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate takeaway. And I think it's a really positive one, is that what if we made the workplace energizing? Because, in the olden days, and it's always been the trope, right? Like, oh, another Monday, gotta go back to work. And everyone has that bluesy take on what the office is about, because that's what it used to be about. Like someone like put you at your desk and you sat there. But what if we were like, oh, I gotta go to work? Yeah. What if we change that? We have the opportunity right now. So, it would be an interesting way so let's build it, guys.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, wow. Thank you. This was energizing. And, so thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It was really wonderful. And let's see what we can make happen at work. So thanks again.
Hey, thanks, Kirsten.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Tide Generator podcast, produced by Avixa. Find it wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.